They fired me in front of everyone, Charlotte's voice echoing through the office intercom like a public execution. I walked out silently, dignity intact. But they didn't know that in my final 8 minutes at Novalink, I'd planted something in the codebase, something perfectly legal, devastatingly clever, and when they went live with their $120 million product launch, streaming to thousands of investors worldwide, I'd detonate it, not with malice, but with precision. They wanted to humiliate me. I'd show them what true power looked like, one commit at a time. My name is Madison Brooks, and until 11:45 this morning, I was senior software architect at Novalink Systems. I'd been there since the beginning, employee number 7, watching our scrappy startup grow into a company about to close a $120 million acquisition. 5 years of my life coded into every critical system. My fingerprints on the architecture that made us valuable enough for global tech to want us. Charlotte Vance, our COO, had other plans for my future. The morning started like any other. I was deep in a code review, preparing the final deployment packages for next week's product showcase, when the intercom crackled to life. Not unusual, we used it for company-wide announcements, but Charlotte's voice had a particular edge that made my fingers freeze over the keyboard. Attention! Novalink team, I need everyone to pause what you're doing for an important announcement. The open office fell silent, heads prairie-dogged above monitors. Someone's Spotify leaked tinny music before being hastily muted. Effective immediately, Madison Brooks is no longer employed at Novalink Systems. Security will escort her from the building once she's collected her personal items. That is all. The words hung in the air like poison gas. 200 pairs of eyes turned to me. Some confused, others gleeful. I'd never been one to play office politics, and it had earned me enemies among Charlotte's inner circle. Jake from sales actually smirked. The security guard, Marcus, was already walking toward my desk, his face apologetic but determined. I felt my face burn, but I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. My hands remained steady as I saved my work muscle memory. Nothing more. The code review I'd been working on auto-committed with my standard message, "Final review complete, MB." "Ma'am," Marcus said quietly, standing beside my desk. "I'm sorry, but—" "Give me 2 minutes to pack," I said, my voice surprisingly level. "You can watch." He nodded, grateful I wasn't making a scene. Around us, the office remained frozen, everyone pretending to work while stealing glances. The woman who'd helped build their golden goose was being marched out like a criminal, and they were all witnesses to the spectacle. I pulled out the cardboard box Marcus offered they'd come prepared, and began the ritual humiliation of packing. My succulents went in first, then the framed MIT diploma I'd hung as a joke, the mechanical keyboard I'd bought with my first Novalink bonus, 5 years condensed into a box that weighed less than my laptop. Charlotte watched from her glass office, arms crossed, making sure the show played out to her satisfaction. She'd won whatever political game she'd been playing. The acquisition was happening, and she'd convinced the board I was expendable. Probably told them my equity was too expensive, that they could redistribute my shares to sweeten the pot for global tech. "The laptop stays," Marcus said apologetically when I reached for it. "Of course." I powered it down, my fingers brushing the warm metal one last time. That machine held 5 years of my work, my innovations, my digital soul. But more importantly, it held my last commit, the one I'd pushed through just minutes before Charlotte's announcement. We walked through the office in silence, my sneakers squeaking against the polished concrete floors I'd helped choose during our last renovation. Past the ping-pong table, no one used. Past the kitchen where I'd had countless coffee-fueled architecture discussions. Past conference rooms named after sci-fi novels, my suggestion, back when my opinion mattered. At the elevator, Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "For what it's worth, this is bullshit. Everyone knows you built half this place." "More than half," I corrected, allowing myself a small smile. "But who's counting?" The elevator dinged, and I stepped inside with my pathetic box. As the doors began to close, I saw Charlotte emerge from her office, probably to give some rallying speech about moving forward, about change being opportunity. She caught my eye for a split second, and I saw triumph there. She had no idea what she'd just done. No idea that in my final moments at that desk, I'd exercised a right I'd negotiated into my original employment contract, the right to maintain ownership of any personal modules I'd developed outside of work hours. One particular module, now embedded deep in Novalink's core architecture, that I'd originally created as a freelance project before joining the company. They'd been using it for 3 years. It powered 40% of our AI functionality, and in exactly 1 week, during their live-streamed product launch, Global Tech's technical team would discover that Novalink didn't actually own the rights to it. The elevator descended, and I kept my face neutral. Charlotte thought she'd humiliated me, destroyed me publicly. But public humiliation cuts both ways. She just didn't know it yet. The HR office was on the second floor, neutral territory. Beige walls and motivational posters about synergy. Marcus waited outside while Jennifer from Human Resources pulled up my termination paperwork, her manicured nails clicking against the keyboard with practiced efficiency. She'd done this before. "I'll need you to sign here, and initial here," she said, sliding papers across the desk. "This confirms the return of all company property and your understanding of the non-disclosure agreement." I read every line. 5 years at Novalink had taught me that details mattered, especially the ones people hoped you'd skip. My eyes caught on a clause about intellectual property. All work products remain property of Novalink Systems. Standard boilerplate. They had no idea about the exception buried in my original contract. "I need to clean up my personal development environment," I said, keeping my voice casual. 5 minutes on a terminal to remove my private repositories and SSH keys. Security protocol, you don't want my personal access points remaining in your system. Jennifer frowned. "I wasn't told." "Check Section 12 of the security guidelines. Employee separation requires removal of all personal authentication tokens. I'd written that section myself, 2 years ago. Marcus can watch me. It's just command line cleanup." She made a phone call, whispering with someone, probably Charlotte. After a moment, she nodded. 5 minutes. Marcus will observe." They led me to a hot desk terminal in the HR suite, one of those machines used for contractors and temps. Marcus stood behind me, close enough to watch but respectfully not breathing down my neck. He didn't understand code anyway. Most of security didn't. I logged in with my credentials, still active for another hour according to protocol. My fingers moved with surgical precision. First, I opened the terminal. Black screen with green text like something from a hacker movie. I made a show of removing SSH keys, deleting personal scripts, all legitimate cleanup that would look good on the security logs. Then I navigated to the main repository. My commit from 40 minutes ago sat there, innocuous, already merged into the main branch by the automated CI/CD pipeline. No one had reviewed it yet. Why would they? I was Madison Brooks, the architect who'd built their entire system. My commits were gospel. But I needed to add one more thing, a comment. A perfectly legal, thoroughly documented comment. Personal Module Quantum Parser v.2. Original Development. Madison Brooks. Independent Contract Work. January 2020. License Proprietary. Madison Brooks. Usage in commercial products requires separate licensing agreement. Contact Madison Brooks. professional@gmail.com. This module integrated into Novalink systems under verbal agreement. No written transfer of ownership exists. The comment was factual. I developed Quantum Parser 3 months before joining Novalink for a freelance client who'd gone bankrupt before paying me. When Novalink's early architecture needed a parsing solution, I'd integrated my own module, telling the founding team about its origins. They'd promised to handle the paperwork later. Later never came. I wrapped the comment in the appropriate metadata tags, ensuring it would appear in any automated code audit. Then I updated the module's internal documentation, not changing any functionality, just properly attributing ownership. Every change was logged, time-stamped, legal. "Done," I said, leaning back. "Personal artifacts removed." Marcus glanced at the screen, saw terminal commands that meant nothing to him. "We're good. We're perfect." Back in HR, Jennifer presented me with more papers. Cobra insurance information. Final paycheck details. My severance was insulting. 2 weeks for 5 years of service, but I signed everything, smiled politely, even shook her hand. Your final check will be direct deposited on the regular pay cycle, she said. Your access badges have been deactivated, and your email will be shut down at 5 p.m. today. What about my equity? I asked, knowing the answer. Forfeited per your employment agreement. Unvested shares returned to the company pool. $300,000 in stock options, gone. Charlotte had timed this perfectly 1 week before the acquisition would have accelerated my vesting, but she'd been so focused on stealing my equity, she'd missed the real treasure. Quantum Parser processed 70 million API calls daily, powered their predictive algorithms, and was the secret sauce global tech was actually buying. And I owned it. Is there anything else? Jennifer asked, already mentally moving on to her next meeting. No, I said, standing with my box. I think we're finished here. Marcus escorted me to the lobby, where the California sunshine felt obscene after the fluorescent tomb of HR. He held the door, genuinely sympathetic. You'll land on your feet, he said. Someone with your skills. Marcus, I interrupted gently. In about a week. You're going to hear some things. When you do, remember that I gave them every opportunity to handle this properly. He looked confused, but I was already walking to my car. Box balanced on my hip. Phone buzzing with messages from former colleagues expressing shock. Sympathy, anger. I ignored them all. In my car, I pulled up my personal laptop and logged into GitHub. My private repository showed the Quantum Parser source code, complete with development history dating back to January 2020, commit messages, and most importantly, the original license file with my name and copyright. 1 week, Global Tech's due diligence team would scan every line of code before signing the acquisition papers. They'd find my comment, investigate the module, discover the ownership issue. Their lawyers would have heart attacks. Charlotte would scramble for explanations she didn't have. And I'd be waiting, with a very reasonable licensing fee in mind. 2 weeks passed in careful silence. I'd moved through the stages of post-termination with calculated precision, updated my LinkedIn, filed for unemployment as a paper trail, even took a few casual coffee meetings with recruiters, all theater. My real attention stayed fixed on Novalink's public repositories, their tech blog, and the countdown to their live-streamed product launch. The apartment I'd rented in Palo Alto became my command center. 3 monitors curved across my desk, displaying Novalink's GitHub activity. Their company Slack, I still had read access through an old integration bot they'd forgotten about, and Twitter feeds from employees who couldn't help but brag about the upcoming game-changing announcement. At 9:30 p.m. on day 12, my phone lit up with the first crack in their facade. Madison, it's David. David Huang, principal engineer. One of the few people at Novalink I'd actually respected. His voice sounded strained. I'm not supposed to be calling you, but what did you do? Hello to you too. David, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Cut the shit. Your last commit. The comments you added. Legal is losing their minds. I leaned back in my chair, watching his breathing through the phone's subtle static. I documented my code properly, something I should have done years ago. Madison, he paused, choosing words carefully. They're saying you sabotaged us. Sabotage implies destruction. I just labeled what was already mine. Check the Git history. David, check the dates. Hell, check my personal GitHub from January 2020. It's all there. Silence. Then, Charlotte is hunting for your head. Charlotte should have thought about that before the public execution. How's the global tech review going? You know I can't. He stopped. Their technical team is thorough, very thorough. Good. They should be for $120 million. Madison, if you're trying to get rehired. I'm not. I pulled up Novalink's event page, the countdown timer showing 52 hours until launch. I'm just ensuring proper attribution for my work. Any competent technical review would have caught this eventually. David's laugh was bitter. You knew they wouldn't check until the final review. You knew Charlotte would rush this through. I knew a lot of things. I knew my equity vesting schedule. I knew the acquisition timeline. I knew Charlotte needed me gone to redistribute my shares. What I didn't know was that she'd make it a public spectacle. This isn't you, Madison. You don't do revenge. You're right, I do documentation. More silence. In the background, I could hear Novalink's office even at 9:30 p.m. People were there, preparing for the launch. The nervous energy was palpable through the phone. They're going to come after you legally, David warned. With what claim? That I accurately documented code I wrote before joining the company, that I followed proper security protocols during my termination, that I added comments to clarify ownership that was never legally transferred. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. I've done nothing wrong. David, I've just done nothing convenient for them. The module is critical infrastructure. 40% of our AI calls. 43%. Actually, I checked the metrics before I left. Jesus Christ, Madison. My phone buzzed with another call. Rachel Winters, VP of Engineering, then another Tom Martinez, lead architect. The dam was breaking. I have to go. David, but do me a favor. Check who's listed as the technical reviewer for my final commits. Check who signed off on integrating Quantum Parser 3 years ago without proper documentation. I heard his sharp intake of breath. He knew what I was telling him Charlotte's name would be on those approvals, along with the former CTO she'd pushed out last year. Madison. 52 hours. David, make sure you're watching the live stream. I hung up and declined the other calls. My email showed 17 new messages, all from Novalink domains. I didn't open them. Instead, I pulled up the Global Tech acquisition announcement, rereading the press release they'd issued 2 weeks ago. Revolutionary AI architecture and groundbreaking parsing technology featured prominently, my technology, described in corporate buzzwords. My laptop dinged with a Slack notification from the bot I still had access to. The Hash General channel was in chaos. Emergency all hands tomorrow at 7 a.m. Legal needs all quantum parser documentation ASAP. Who worked on the original integration? Charlotte wants a full audit trail by morning. I screenshotted everything, adding to my growing folder of evidence, not for legal action I wouldn't need it, but for posterity, for the story I'd tell future employers about the importance of proper documentation and intellectual property management. Another message appeared, this one in a private channel I wasn't supposed to see. Charlotte Vance. Find everything Madison touched, every line of code, every comment, every fucking semicolon. Legal team. Charlotte, we need to discuss the ownership claim, if she has proof of prior development. Charlotte Vance. She's bluffing. She was our employee. We own everything. Legal team. That's not how IP law works. If the module predates her employment and was never formally transferred, Charlotte Vance. Then make it formally transferred. Backdate something if you have to. I screenshotted that one twice. Charlotte had just suggested fraud in writing, on a platform that logged everything. My phone rang again. Unknown number this time. I let it go to voicemail, then listened. Ms. Brooks, this is Gareth Linwood, CTO of Global Tech. I'd like to discuss your recent documentation updates at Novalink. Please call me at your earliest convenience. Gareth Linwood, the man holding the $120 million checkbook. He'd found my breadcrumbs. 36 hours until the launch. The fuse was lit, and Charlotte had no idea how short it really was. The morning of the launch arrived with Silicon Valley's typical indifference fog rolling over the hills. Traffic already thick on the 101. Novalink's headquarters would be electric with anticipation. I knew because I was watching it all unfold through their social media managers' enthusiastic posts. T-2 hours until we changed the game had Novalink launch. Evolution had tech history. I sat in my living room, laptop positioned perfectly, coffee steaming beside me, 3 windows open Novalink's live stream page, currently showing a countdown timer, my email, where Gareth Linwood's messages were accumulating, and a terminal window connected to my personal server, documenting every public interaction for my records. At 10 a.m. sharp, the live stream began. The production value was impressive multiple camera angles, professional lighting, the Novalink logo gleaming behind a stage they'd constructed in their main conference hall. I recognized the space, had helped design the layout to maximize capacity. 300 seats, all filled, investors in the front row, employees packed in behind, media along the walls. Charlotte took the stage first, wearing the same power suit she'd worn to my public execution. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Welcome, everyone, to a historic moment for Novalink Systems," she began, her voice carrying that practiced executive confidence. "Today, we're not just announcing a product, we're announcing a partnership that will revolutionize how businesses interact with artificial intelligence." The camera panned across the audience. I spotted David in the third row, his face tense. The legal team clustered near the exit, probably hoping to disappear if things went south. "Before we begin," Charlotte continued, "I want to thank the brilliant team that made this possible. Our engineers, our architects, our visionaries who built something truly extraordinary." No mention of the architect she'd fired 2 weeks ago, the one whose code powered the very demo she was about to run. Gareth Linwood entered from stage left, and my breath caught. He wasn't supposed to appear until after the technical demonstration. The script was changing. "Thank you, Charlotte," Gareth said, taking the microphone with practiced ease. "Global Tech is excited about this acquisition. The innovation we've seen from Novalink is truly impressive. However, before we proceed with the demonstration, I'd like to address something important." Charlotte's smile flickered, just for a second, but the cameras caught it. "In any acquisition of this magnitude," Gareth continued, "due diligence is paramount. Our technical team has been thoroughly reviewing Novalink's architecture, and they've raised some interesting questions." The audience shifted. Murmurs rippled through the employees. Charlotte stepped forward, trying to reclaim control. "I'm sure any questions can be addressed." "I'm sure they can," Gareth interrupted smoothly. "Perhaps we should start with the technical demonstration. I'm particularly interested in seeing the quantum parser module in action, the one that processes 70 million API calls daily." 73 million as of yesterday, Charlotte corrected, desperate to show competence. "Impressive, and this module was developed entirely in-house." The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. "Our team has built all core components," Charlotte said, the lawyer-approved non-answer obvious to everyone. "Your team," Gareth repeated, "including Madison Brooks." Gasps from the audience. The employees knew I'd been fired. They didn't know I was now part of the conversation. Charlotte's jaw tightened. Ms. Brooks was a former employee who contributed to various projects. Gareth pulled out his phone, swiping to something. "Because according to the documentation in your own repository, she's the sole copyright holder of Quantum Parser, a module developed in January 2020, 3 months before she joined Novalink." The live stream chat exploded. I watched the viewer count climb 5,000, 8,000, 12,000. Tech Twitter was catching on. Someone had started a thread. "Holy shit, you guys watching the Novalink stream?" "There must be some confusion," Charlotte stammered. "Our legal team—" "Your legal team," Gareth said, now projecting his phone onto the main screen, "suggested in internal communications that you could, quote, backdate something if you have to." The screenshot from Slack appeared in 4-foot-high resolution. Charlotte's own words, time-stamped, verified. The audience erupted. Phones came out. Pictures were taken. The live stream moderator was desperately trying to delete comments, but they were coming too fast. That's taken out of context," Charlotte managed. "The context seems quite clear." Gareth turned to the audience, then directly to one of the cameras. "Global Tech cannot proceed with an acquisition where core intellectual property ownership is disputed. Furthermore, we cannot partner with a company whose leadership suggests fraudulent documentation." Board members in the front row were on their feet. One was already on his phone, probably calling emergency legal counsel. Charlotte stood frozen, her grand moment collapsing in real time. "We can resolve this," she said, voice cracking. "Madison, Ms. Brooks, we can negotiate." "Can you?" Gareth asked. "Because I've been in communication with Ms. Brooks for the past 48 hours. She's been very professional. very thorough in documenting her ownership. She's even offered to license the technology to Novalink at market rate. Of course. My phone buzzed. A text from David. "You magnificent bastard." On screen, Charlotte was drowning. The board members were converging on her. The livestream comment section was a waterfall of schadenfreude and speculation. The viewer count hit 25,000. Then Gareth delivered the killing blow. I should mention, Ms. Brooks also shared her full employment contract from 2020, the one that explicitly retained her rights to any pre-existing intellectual property, signed by. He made a show of checking his phone. Charlotte Vance, in her capacity as COO. Charlotte's face went white. She'd signed dozens of contracts back then, desperate to hire talent for the growing startup. She'd never read the fine print on mine. "This live stream is over," someone from legal shouted, rushing the stage. But it was too late. The internet had seen everything. Hashtag Novalink scandal was trending. Tech reporters were writing headlines in real time. The acquisition wasn't just delayed, it was dead. The stream cut to black, but not before catching Charlotte's final expression, the same triumphant look she'd worn during my public firing, now transformed into complete devastation. My phone rang immediately. Novalink's board president. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hello." "Madison, we need to talk." "Yes," I agreed, looking at my laptop where 3 other acquisition offers had already appeared in my inbox, all from global tech's competitors. "I believe we do." The live stream had cut to black, but the chaos was just beginning. My laptop screen lit up like a slot machine. Notifications, messages, connection requests. Tech Twitter had gone nuclear. Someone had clipped Gareth's revelation, and it was already at 50,000 views. The hashtag #Novalink scandal competed with #Quantum Parsergate for trending supremacy. I stayed focused on the main event. Through the ghost of my Slack access, I watched Novalink's internal communications melt down in real time. Emergency Operations Channel. Who the fuck gave Gareth those screenshots? Legal wants everyone in conference room A now. Do not talk to any reporters. Charlotte's been escorted to the boardroom. Is the stream really dead? Confirm the stream is dead. It wasn't dead. Someone in the audience, probably a global tech employee, was streaming from their phone. Shaky footage, but the audio was crystal clear. "You signed this contract." Board President Harrison Wells' voice boomed through someone's iPhone. "You personally guaranteed all IP was clean." Madison never disclosed. Charlotte's voice, desperate now. "She disclosed it in writing. It's in her employment agreement, the one you negotiated." I pulled up my email. 47 new messages. I scanned for the important ones. Global Tech Legal, 3 competitors, 4 venture capital firms, and buried in the middle. From Jennifer in HR. "Please call immediately, urgent matter regarding your separation." Too late for that. Jennifer. The bootleg stream showed security trying to clear the conference hall, but media had swarmed. A CNBC reporter was doing a stand-up directly in front of the Novalink logo. What was supposed to be a celebration of innovation has turned into a case study in due diligence failure. My phone rang. Gareth Linwood himself. "Ms. Brooks, I believe my point has been made." "Dramatically," I agreed, "though I didn't expect you to burn them quite so publicly." "They burned themselves the moment they suggested fraud. I simply provided the match." His British accent made even devastation sound polite. "Global tech has standards. We don't acquire companies that steal from their engineers." "And the module?" "We're still interested, very interested, actually, but we'd prefer to license it directly from you. Cut out the middleman, as it were." I pulled up my prepared licensing agreement, the one I drafted while watching Novalink's world collapse. "I have terms ready." "I'm sure you do. Send them to legal. But Madison," his voice carried a smile, "next time someone tries to fuck you over, call me first. We could have avoided this theater." The theater was the point. "Gareth?" He laughed. "Indeed. We'll be in touch." I hung up and returned to the chaos. The bootleg stream had captured something new. Charlotte being escorted out by security, not fired, not yet, but clearly removed from the premises while the board discussed damage control. The parallel to my own exit wasn't lost on anyone watching. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. David Huang appeared on the shaky stream, standing where Charlotte had been, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the technical difficulties." Technical difficulties, a reporter shouted. "Your COO just admitted to IP theft on livestream. We're investigating all claims." "Is it true Madison Brooks owns the core technology?" David's face, I knew that expression. The one when production servers crash at 3 a.m. and you realize the backups are corrupted. Complete systems failure. "We're prepared to negotiate with all parties," he managed. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize, but the message made the sender clear. "Conference room A is like a fucking war zone. Charlotte's crying, actually crying. Board's discussing criminal charges. Marcus." Even security was enjoying this. The bootleg streamer was pushed outside, but not before catching the parking lot reporters everywhere. Employees fleeing to their Teslas. Absolute pandemonium. Novalink's perfect product launch had become the tech industry's fire festival. I opened a new browser tab and navigated to Novalink's website. The homepage still showed the countdown timer, now reading 000000. The future is here. The irony was perfect. Another email arrived, this one from Harrison Wells himself. "Madison. The board has removed Charlotte Vance effective immediately. We need to discuss quantum parser licensing urgently. Please respond with your terms and availability. I want to personally apologize for how your termination was handled. It was unprofessional and clearly uninformed. Harrison. No mention of my equity, no offer to reinstate me. Just panic over the technology they'd realized they didn't own." I started typing my response. Harrison. My consulting rate is $2,500 per hour. Minimum 40 hours to assess the integration and establish licensing terms. The license fee for Quantum Parser will be 3% of gross revenue for any product utilizing the module, with a minimum annual guarantee of $12 million. These terms are non-negotiable and expire in 24 hours. Madison Brooks. My finger hovered over send. On the bootleg stream, someone had zoomed in on the presentation screen, still showing my commit comment in massive letters. Original development, Madison Brooks, independent contract work, January 2020. I hit send. The stream finally cut out as security found the streamer, but it didn't matter. The damage was absolute. Tech news sites had published a dozen articles. LinkedIn was overflowing with hot takes about IP rights and founder equity. Someone had already updated Novalink's Wikipedia page with a new section, 2025 Acquisition Failure and IP Scandal. My phone rang again. Charlotte Vance. I let it go to voicemail, then listened. Madison, please, I know you hate me right now, but they're talking about criminal charges, fraud, conspiracy. I need you to tell them this was a misunderstanding, that we had a verbal agreement. Please, I have a family. I deleted it before she finished. She'd had a chance to handle this properly. She'd chosen public humiliation instead. The sun was setting over Palo Alto, painting my apartment in shades of gold and revenge. Somewhere across the city, Novalink's board was scrambling to salvage a $120 million deal. Charlotte was probably consulting with criminal defense attorneys, and Global Tech was preparing an offer for my technology that would make my lost equity look like pocket change. I closed my laptop and poured myself a glass of wine. The best revenge. I'd learned. Wasn't destruction, it was precision. It was letting them destroy themselves with their own arrogance. My phone lit up with another call. Harrison Wells again. This time, I answered. $2,500 an hour is acceptable, he said without preamble. When can you start? The live stream was dead, but the internet had given it eternal life. Someone had uploaded the full recording to YouTube. Tech CEO destroys company in real time, shocking, and it already had 2 million views. The comments section was a masterclass in schadenfreude. Memes were born. Charlotte's frozen face became the new surprised Pikachu. I watched it all from my apartment. Fielding calls I didn't answer and emails I didn't read. Not yet. Let them marinate in their desperation a little longer. At 7:45 p.m., the real entertainment began. CNBC breaking news alert. Novalink Systems acquisition terminated by Global Tech following IP dispute. The ticker at the bottom spelled it out in corporate speak. Global Tech withdraws from $120. Acquisition citing material misrepresentation of intellectual property ownership. My Slack ghost account showed the internal apocalypse. Stock options are worthless now. Charlotte's been formally terminated. Board meeting still going hour 6. Reporters are still in the parking lot. Who's even in charge now? Then came the message that made me sit up. David Huang, Gareth Linwood, just posted on LinkedIn. I pulled up LinkedIn. Gareth's post was a masterpiece of corporate assassination. Today's events at Novalink Systems demonstrate why Global Tech maintains strict due diligence standards. We cannot and will not proceed with acquisitions where intellectual property ownership is misrepresented, or where leadership suggests fraudulent solutions to legal challenges. We commend engineers like Madison Brooks, who properly document their work and retain rightful ownership of their innovations. The tech industry thrives on respect for intellectual property and the brilliant minds who create it. Global Tech remains interested in licensing quantum parser technology directly from its creator. 3,000 reactions in 10 minutes. The comments were a who's who of Silicon Valley, all distancing themselves from Novalink while praising ethical IP management. My phone rang. Unknown number with a 650 area code. Madison Brooks. A woman's voice, professional but urgent. Speaking. This is Sarah Martinez from the Wall Street Journal. We're running a story on the Novalink situation. Would you care to comment on... No comment. Charlotte Vance has suggested you orchestrated this as revenge for your termination. I laughed. Actually laughed. Charlotte Vance suggested a lot of things, including backdating legal documents. I'm sure you saw the screenshots. So you deny planning this. I documented my code properly. If that constitutes revenge, then every engineer who comments their work is guilty. Our sources say you knew about the acquisition timeline when you added those comments. Your sources should check when I developed Quantum Parser, January 2020. The acquisition wasn't even a dream then. I simply clarified ownership that existed before I ever walked into Novalink's office. Sarah paused, typing. Can you confirm you're now negotiating directly with Global Tech? I'm exploring all options for my intellectual property, including with Novalink. Novalink has my terms. 24 hours to respond. 24 hours, that seems generous, considering they've been using my property without permission for 3 years. Have a good evening. Sarah? I hung up and turned off my phone. Let them all wonder, speculate, panic. On my laptop, I pulled up the Novalink website again. The celebration page had been replaced with a simple statement. Novalink Systems is currently restructuring its executive team and reviewing all technical assets. We remain committed to our customers and partners during this transition. Corporate speak for "we're fucked." Twitter had created a moment, the Novalink incident, with a custom emoji of a burning server. Someone had edited Charlotte's Wikipedia page to list her tenure as 2019 to 2025, terminated following IP scandal. Her LinkedIn had disappeared entirely. But the best part came from an unexpected source. Someone leaked an internal email from Global Tech's CEO to his entire staff. Team. Today's events reinforce why we maintain the highest standards in our acquisitions. We walked away from a $120 deal because the IP foundation was compromised. That takes courage. But it's the right decision. To any engineers reading this, your innovations matter. Document them. Protect them, and if someone tries to steal them, know that companies like Global Tech will stand with creators, not those who exploit them. We're now in direct negotiations with the rightful owner of quantum parser technology. Sometimes the best deals come from the ashes of the worst practices. Remember, integrity isn't just good ethics, it's good business. My email dinged. Harrison Wells again. Madison. The board has accepted your terms. $2,500 hour, minimum 40 hours, 3% gross revenue, 12 file NAS, minimum annual guarantee. Please confirm receipt and availability to begin integration assessment. Also, the board wants me to convey our deepest apologies for the circumstances of your departure. Charlotte Vance acted without board knowledge or approval. Harrison. Without board knowledge, bullshit. They'd known. They just hadn't cared until it cost them everything. I drafted my response. Harrison. Terms accepted. I'll begin Monday at 9 a.m. Please note, I'll need full access to all systems, complete documentation of quantum parser integration, and a technical team that actually understands the codebase, not Charlotte's political appointees. Also, my consulting agreement will include a strict non-disparagement clause. I won't discuss Novalink's failures publicly as long as all payments are timely. Madison. Before sending, I added one more line. P.S. I'll be working remotely. I'm sure you understand why returning to the office would be awkward. Send. The sun had fully set now. Silicon Valley's lights twinkled below, each one representing dreams, ambitions, and occasionally, spectacular failures like today's. My phone, still silenced, showed 47 missed calls. Charlotte had tried 15 times. I pulled up her last voicemail. Curious. Madison, the board is threatening criminal charges. They're freezing my assets. My husband is... Please, just tell them we had an understanding. Tell them you gave verbal permission. I'll pay you. Whatever you want. Just please. The message cut off. Time limit reached. I deleted it and blocked her number. She'd learn what everyone in Silicon Valley would remember: you don't publicly humiliate the person who built your castle. They know where all the bodies are buried. They know which walls are load-bearing. And sometimes, they know exactly which comment to add to bring it all crashing down. The Novalink logo still glowed on their building across the bay. But tomorrow, it would mean something different. Not innovation, not success. Just another cautionary tale about the engineer who got fired publicly and took their $120 million deal with them when they left. The aftermath moved faster than any sprint cycle I'd ever managed. By 10 p.m., Novalink's implosion had become Silicon Valley legend. The story had evolved, mutated, grown wings. Reddit's Arage programming had a mega-thread with 8,000 comments dissecting every frame of the live stream. Someone had created a minute-by-minute timeline with color-coded severity levels. Charlotte's backdate something quote had become a meme template. But I wasn't celebrating. I was calculating. My laptop showed 3 contracts waiting for review: Novalink's desperate capitulation, Global Tech's direct licensing offer, and surprisingly, a third player, Infinitum Corp., Global Tech's biggest competitor, wanting exclusive rights to quantum parser. The bidding war I'd inadvertently created was about to make my public humiliation very, very expensive for Novalink. My email notification popped up. The Wall Street Journal article had gone live. How one engineer's documentation destroyed a $120 deal. They'd found my GitHub. The January 2020 commits were screenshot and embedded. My careful, methodical development history laid out like evidence in a court case, which technically, it might become. The article included a quote from an anonymous Novalink engineer. Madison built everything. Charlotte just took credit. We all knew quantum parser was hers, but nobody thought she'd kept the rights. That was brilliant. David. Had to be David. Then my phone, still on silent, lit up with a FaceTime request. Gareth Linwood. I answered. Madison. His background showed a home office, probably Los Altos Hills from the view. I thought you should hear this directly. Infinitum just offered us $80 million for our AI division if we can guarantee quantum parser access. That's not possible. I own quantum parser. Exactly. Which is why I'm calling. They're about to contact you with an exclusive licensing offer. It will be substantial. But before you accept, consider this. Global Tech will offer you something better. I'm listening. Equity, not options, actual shares. 2% of Global Tech in exchange for perpetual licensing rights. At our current valuation, that's worth approximately $300 million. I kept my face neutral, but my heart rate spiked. $300 million. For code I'd written in my apartment over a weekend 3 years ago. Interesting. And Novalink? Novalink is finished. Their board is already shopping for buyers to salvage what's left. Without Quantum Parser, they're worth maybe $20 million. Charlotte Vance is facing SEC investigation for the attempted fraud, but you didn't hear that from me. When do you need an answer? Monday. Take the weekend. But Madison, we want you, not just your code. There's a principal engineer position waiting if you're interested. I'll think about it. And check TechCrunch in about 5 minutes. He hung up. I pulled up TechCrunch and refreshed. Refreshed again. Then the headline appeared. Exclusive. Charlotte Vance arrested on fraud charges following Novalink scandal. The article was brutal. Federal agents had arrived at her Atherton home at 9:30 p.m. Neighbors had provided Ring doorbell footage of her being led away in handcuffs. The charge conspiracy to commit intellectual property fraud and wire fraud for the attempted backdating scheme. The screenshots from Slack had been enough for an arrest warrant. My Slack ghost account exploded. Charlotte's been arrested. FBI agents just showed up asking for access to all communications. Everyone stop talking on here now. Delete nothing. Legal says deleting anything is now obstruction. Are we all getting fired? Then, from David Huang, in a private message I shouldn't have been able to see. Madison, if you're somehow seeing this, thank you. She destroyed so many careers, so many good people. What you did was justice. I screenshot it, then finally killed my ghost access. No point risking detection now. Another email arrived. Infinitum Corp's CEO. Ms. Brooks, we're prepared to offer $50 upfront, plus 5% of gross revenue for exclusive rights to Quantum Parser. This is our opening offer. We're prepared to negotiate. The industry needs innovation like yours in the hands of companies that respect creators. James Chen, CEO, Infinitum Corp. $50 million cash, upfront. My hands were shaking slightly as I typed. Mr. Chen, I appreciate your interest. I'm reviewing multiple offers and will make a decision by Monday. For context, Global Tech has offered $300 in equity. I'm sure you understand I must consider all options. Madison Brooks. Send. Within 30 seconds, my phone rang. James Chen himself. $300 million in equity that vests over 4 years, he said without preamble. Our $50 million is cash. Today, Monday, but immediate liquidity. Plus 5% gross. Plus 5%. And if you're calculating, that could be another $100 million annually within 2 years. I need the weekend. Madison, let me be frank. Global Tech will try to lock you into employment. Golden handcuffs. We're offering pure financial freedom. No obligations beyond the IP transfer. I understand. Do you... Because there's something else. Charlotte Vance approached us 3 weeks ago. Shopping Novalink. She specifically said Quantum Parser was fully owned. We almost bought based on that representation. But you didn't. Our CTO insisted on deeper diligence. He found your GitHub, your commits. We knew something was off. He paused. We were going to warn you, but then you got fired? We figured you'd handle it yourself. And I did. Spectacularly. The live stream was artistic. Charlotte crying while Gareth dismantled her chef's kiss. Despite everything, I smiled. It wasn't planned to be that dramatic. The best revenge never is. It just flows naturally from preparation meeting opportunity. Another call was coming in. Harrison Wells. I need to take this, I told Chen. Of course. But Madison, whatever Novalink offers, we'll beat it by 20%. I switched calls. Harrison's voice was exhausted. Madison, the FBI just seized our servers. That's not my problem, Harrison. No. But this might be... Charlotte apparently kept records of every interaction, including recordings of board meetings where we discussed your termination. My blood chilled, and... We need to modify our agreement. The board is prepared to offer you full reinstatement, backdated, your equity would be fully vested, plus the licensing agreement, plus a formal apology and a press release stating you were wrongfully terminated. You're trying to buy my silence about whatever's in those recordings. We're trying to make things right. Bullshit. You're covering your ass. I pulled up my laptop. started typing while talking. New terms, 4% of gross, 20 million minimum guarantee, and I want Charlotte's equity position transferred to me. That's 15% of the company. That's justice. You have 1 hour to respond. Harrison, after that, I call my lawyer and we'll see what those recordings reveal. I hung up and leaned back. 3 offers, each worth more than I'd ever dreamed. All because I'd documented my code properly and Charlotte had been stupid enough to suggest fraud in writing. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, the security guard. Saw the news? Charlotte in handcuffs. The whole office cheered. Actually cheered. You're a legend. I texted back, just an engineer who documents her code. Sure, and Batman is just a guy with a cape. The night stretched ahead, full of possibilities. Novalink burning behind me, global tech, infinitum, and a dozen other opportunities ahead. All because I'd taken 8 minutes to add a comment. Monday morning arrived crisp and clear. One of those perfect Silicon Valley days that made you forget the industry's darkness. I sat at my kitchen table, 3 contracts printed and annotated, coffee cooling while I made my choice. Novalink had capitulated completely 4%, 20 million guarantee. Charlotte's equity transferred. They'd even offered a written apology suitable for framing. Global Tech stood firm at 300 million in equity, plus the principal engineer position. Infinitum had raised to 70 million cash, plus 5%. But I wasn't looking at the numbers anymore. I was looking at something else entirely, a 4th option that had arrived at 11:59 p.m. Sunday night. Madison. My name is Amelia Foster. I'm founding a new AI startup focused on ethical technology and creator rights. We have Series A funding of $40 million committed. I can't match their money, but I can offer you something else: true partnership, 40% equity, co-founder status, and a company built on the principle that engineers own their innovations. We launched Tuesday, with or without Quantum Parser, but I'd rather launch with you. Amelia. I'd Googled her. Former CTO of 3 successful exits, known for treating engineers like gold, left her last company when they tried to steal a junior developer's patent. At exactly 9 a.m., I opened my laptop and started a video call with all 4 parties. Split-screen Harrison looking haggard, Gareth polished as always, James Chen eager, and Amelia Foster, who looked like she'd been coding all night but smiled like she'd already won. Gentlemen, Amelia, I began, thank you for your offers. I've made my decision. Harrison leaned forward. Gareth adjusted his tie. James unmuted hurriedly. Quantum Parser will be licensed to all of you. Confusion on every face. Non-exclusive licenses, 2% of gross, 5 million minimum annually, each, take it or leave it. That's not what we discussed, Harrison started. No, we discussed exclusive rights, but I've realized something. Quantum Parser is bigger than any one company. It should be available to everyone who respects IP rights and pays fairly. Gareth smiled slowly. Clever. You make more from multiple licenses than selling once. And I continued, I'm joining Amelia's startup as co-founder and chief architect. We'll be developing Quantum Parser 2.0. The current version is just the beginning. Harrison's face went purple. You can't... I can... Check the code. Quantum Parser 1.0 is complete, stable, and available for licensing. Version 2.0 will be entirely new development. My contract with Amelia specifically allows me to maintain and license all previous work. James Chen laughed. Actually laughed. You've thought of everything. I learned from the best. Charlotte taught me exactly how not to handle intellectual property. Speaking of Charlotte, Gareth interjected, her trial starts next month. You'll likely be called as a witness. I'll tell the truth, that I documented my code properly and she attempted to steal it. The screenshots speak for themselves. Harrison disconnected without another word. James nodded respectfully and ended his call. Gareth lingered. Madison, the global tech offer stands if this startup doesn't work out. It'll work out. I believe it will. Best of luck. The screen went dark, leaving just Amelia and me. Welcome to Prometheus AI, she said. When do you want to start? Already started. I've been refactoring Quantum Parser's core algorithm all weekend. We can demo the improvements Tuesday. This is why I wanted you, not the code, the mindset. I closed my laptop and walked to my window. Across the bay, Novalink's building still stood, but their logo was being removed. Workmen on scaffolding, erasing Charlotte's empire piece by piece. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Heard about your decision. Novalink's in chaos, but they'll pay. They have no choice. You won. I texted back, we all won, except Charlotte. She made bail, already trying to spin it as a misunderstanding. Good luck with that. The internet is forever. And it was. The livestream clip had 10 million views. Business schools were already writing case studies. The quantum parser incident had its own Wikipedia page. I pulled up my banking app. The first wire transfers were already pending. Infinitum had moved fast. 5 million hitting my account. Global Tech and Novalink would follow within hours. By end of day, I'd have 15 million in guaranteed minimums, with royalties to follow quarterly. Not bad for 8 minutes of typing and one perfectly placed comment. Charlotte had given me a public execution. I'd given her a public cremation. My laptop dinged. An email from Amelia with the subject line, one more thing. Madison, forgot to mention, our first client wants Quantum Parser 2.0 for their platform. They're offering $30 for priority access. The client Global Tech. Gareth really wants to work with you. I laughed, really laughed. For the first time in weeks, Charlotte had tried to destroy me in front of everyone, tried to steal my life's work, tried to erase my contributions. Instead, she'd made me unforgettable. I opened a new terminal window and started coding. Quantum Parser 2.0 wouldn't write itself, and I had a new company to build, a company where engineers owned their work, where documentation mattered, where no one would ever be publicly humiliated for building the very foundation of success. The sun climbed higher over Silicon Valley, and somewhere in Atherton, Charlotte Vance was meeting with lawyers, trying to explain how one comment had destroyed everything. But I wasn't thinking about her anymore. I was thinking about the future, about Prometheus AI, about the code flowing from my fingers like poetry. Revenge, I'd learned, wasn't about destroying your enemies. It was about building something so undeniable that their attempts to diminish you only elevated you higher. And with that thought, I typed my first commit message for Prometheus AI. Beginning of something better. Madison Brooks, co-founder and chief architect. Push, commit, history. The end. Thank you for listening to this story of sweet revenge and poetic justice. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment, and let's connect. If you enjoyed Madison's journey of turning humiliation into triumph, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. Have you ever witnessed or experienced workplace revenge? What did you think of Madison's calculated response? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to share this story with anyone who's ever been underestimated at work.